Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. Really excited about being on this presentation. My name is Vince Tomich, and it's my pleasure to be co-hosting this program about our self-directed IRAs. I see a lot of familiar names on tonight's webinar, and I see quite a bit of new names. So for those of you that are new to Marshall Reddick, I wanted to take a minute to explain who we are and what we do. So Marshall Reddick is a residential real estate firm that focuses on three primary services: our brokerage, our property management, and our private lending. So to explain a bit more, for our brokerage, we help people buy and sell here locally in Southern California, as well as in any of our 16 out-of-state markets. And for those that invest in our out-of-state markets, 99% of those use property management. So for our property management, we cover everything from A to Z, including leasing, showings, rent collection, rent disbursement, and everything else along that line. Our final service is private lending, which is what you guys are here to learn a little bit more about. And our private lending actually has two different clients. One is going to be our borrowers, and the others are lenders. So our borrowers include those looking to build those using to fix and flip homes, those looking to build spec homes, or those looking to leverage their retirement account like you folks tonight. On the flip side of that, we have our lenders. The same way you would invest in real estate, we give that option for you to invest in mortgages. Again, my name is Vince Tomich, and I am an advisor here at Marshall Reddick. And my role is to learn as much as I can about each one of you investors to help you accomplish your short-term and long-term real estate goals. As a rental property owner myself, I take great pride in helping clients find the right investment property in any of our 16 markets that we operate in. Joining me for this program as our featured guest speaker will be Dmitriy Fomichenko, president of Sense Financial. Dmitry, welcome.
Oh, thank you so much for the introduction. It's great to be here.
Of course, of course. Additionally, we'll hear from the director of our private lending here at Marshall Reddick, Patrick Prunty. And I'd actually like to start with him.
Thanks, Vince. And hi, folks. Patrick Prunty here. And as always, I'm glad to be with you. It's a special treat, too, tonight to be co-hosting this program with my longtime friend and business colleague, Dmitriy Fomichenko. He's here to help us learn about the most powerful self-directed retirement account, and powerful it is. After that, and we hear from Dmitry, Vince and I will be jumping back on to kind of help you understand how you can use that self-directed retirement account to invest with Marshall Reddick in real estate, whether that be rental property or in private loans on our mortgage marketplace. Now, before we move into the presentation, crazy to say, as the senior team member here at Marshall Reddick, I'm on the backslide towards a 20-year anniversary. I started my career with Marshall Reddick in 2003, and it was just a couple of years after that when I met Dmitry. He and I worked together for several years prior to his exploration into the self-directed retirement world, and ultimately when he founded Sense Financial. Now, through all the years here at Marshall Reddick and all that I've learned, one of the big takeaways, and I know Vince shares this with me, it's the importance of your team, your network, right, and the resources that are available to you. That said, this program is perfect, right, as Dmitry and his team at Sense Financial are certainly a big part of my team, my network, and my resources here at Marshall Reddick. Dmitry helped me personally set up a checkbook IRA, and that was back in 2012. Can't believe it. Most recently, in 2016, he helped set up a solo 401k for my wife. So when I, speak from experience, I put a big emphasis behind the fact that that Dmitry and Sense Financial are a huge part of our team, right? And not only for me personally, but this is in addition to literally thousands of Marshall Reddick clients that he and Sense Financial have helped over the past decade. Now, a little bit about my role at Marshall Reddick as the Director of Private Lending. So I oversee the development of our mortgage marketplace, right? Our loan programs, our lending staff, and our loan pipeline, right? Our pipeline today is approximately 400 loans and roughly 40 million in investor capital. So that's all private investors, just like yourselves, many of which using a self-directed retirement account. And I've got a screen clip there of our mortgage marketplace, which we're going to dive into a little bit after our featured presentation. So as we move into the program, right, we're all a little unsure about the equities market. And I found this article, which I have on the screen, fitting, right? And it goes to show, as many of you share with me, the love for real estate. It's that physical nature of the asset as opposed to the equities market, where I'm feeling anxiety always about, where it's like, you know, these large companies that are out there, like JP Morgan or Goldman Sachs, who are kind of pulling the purse strings and they're manipulating that market. So I don't know, I'm not really an equities guy. I'm much more on the real estate side. And again, it comes to that physical nature. And a lot of times you don't have the ability or the know-how to invest retirement funds in non-traditional assets, such as real estate rental property or in private money loans. So a couple of basics, right? And this might be review for a lot of you, but bear with me. Dmitriy is going to be speaking shortly. So what is an IRA and what is a 401k? Well, simply put, an IRA is an individual retirement account, whereas a 401k is an employer-sponsored program, right? These are both tax-deferred retirement savings account, unless, of course, you establish a Roth IRA or contribute in a Roth 401k capacity. And the screen clip on the screen there just goes to show you some of the differences between a 401k and an IRA. These contribution limits, by the way, are updated and are applicable as of 2019. So what about the difference between a traditional style retirement account and a Roth style? Well, traditional, as many of us are familiar with, is going to be that tax deductible and the tax deferred account. Whereas like most folks have a 401k through their employer, right? And they allow pre-tax contributions to that 401k. There's no income restrictions, and you can contribute to this type of account up until 70 and a half, at which point, if you haven't already started taking distributions, you'll be forced to start taking them. On the opposite end of that is the Roth, okay? And that would be tax-free growth, because the contributions you're making are with after-tax money. And that can be a very powerful tool. The self-directed IRA that Dmitriy helped me set up several years ago, I went from a traditional style to a Roth style, and I'm going to talk about that when we get to our case studies later. But to finish out with the Roth, there are income restrictions on this, but you can contribute at any age. You're not forced to stop at 70 and a half, and there's never required distributions. I kind of find that funny, right? They require it in a traditional sense, and when I say they, I mean the IRS, right? Because Uncle Sam needs to get paid at some point in time. They don't want you to keep deferring it. But anyways, that's a little bit of the basics. Besides that, what's a custodian, right? Well, the definition, as far as Merriam-Webster is concerned, is that one that guards and protects or maintains, specifically regarding property and/or records. But when we're talking about our IRAs or 401ks, the financial definition, this is an institution that holds physical possession of your assets for convenience and security. So we're going to hear those terms, traditional, Roth, and custodian, throughout tonight's presentation. So I wanted you to be aware of that. Let's get on. We like crowd participation. Let's launch a poll question and get some audience feedback. Okay, so we've got the poll question up. I'd like to set up a self-directed retirement account. Okay, good. So we're going to give you a little bit more time. We've got a lot of folks contributing, but we have a ton of people on the call. Okay. We're going to close the poll. Thank you so much. And now we're going to share the results. Okay, so as you guys can see, we have a lot of people tonight already with a self-directed retirement account. That's great. But we also have some people that don't. And those folks are going to get a pure education tonight. Those folks who already do, Vince and I are super excited about speaking to you and showing you how to utilize those funds to invest in real estate. All right, so let's move on. Without further ado, I'd like to bring on Dmitriy Fomichenko, our guest and keynote speaker tonight. Dmitriy, thanks for everything you do, and thanks for being with us.
Patrick, thanks for the kind words. It's been a pleasure to serve you and your wife and many of your clients. So you guys see my contact information here, and then on the next slide, you will see basically that everyone is going to be able to schedule a consultation with me one-on-one. I do offer a complimentary consultation. There is a link there at the bottom of the slide. Today, our presentation is going to be packed with some great stuff, and I'm going to fly through it. So, but I would love to connect with you one-on-one and hear about your situation and help you possibly if I can. So the next slide is I'm going to show you the options or talk about the options when it comes to self-directed retirement accounts. And there are basically three options. There is a self-directed custodial IRA, there is a checkbook IRA, and there is also a solo 401k. And this last option is known as a ultimate retirement plan. So let's take a look at just a normal conventional IRA. If we can go to the next slide. And conventional IRA is basically an account that is controlled by the custodian who controls your investment choices. And typically investment choices are limited to stocks, bonds, and mutual funds. So if you can think of just main custodians that most people are aware of is Vanguard, E-Trade, Schwab, Wells Fargo, and so forth. And then on the other side, you're going to look at the self-directed. So here is just an example of a sheet that I was given when I had a 401k at my past employer, and we had a 401k meeting about once a year. A representative came up and will show us this option. So as you can see, they're very limited and they're all confined to the stock market. So on the other side, you'll see a self-directed, and with the self-directed, you basically have unlimited investment choices. You don't have a custodian who limits your investment choices to just stocks and mutual funds. You have pretty much all kinds of investments that you can make. The most popular are real estate. You can buy a rental property inside of your IRA or 401k. You can do private lending. I've been doing this personally for the last probably 6, 7, maybe 8 years. Was able to double both mine and my wife's retirement accounts just doing private lending. I think it's a great way. For me personally, this is the preferred way to invest my retirement money. But you can also do all kinds of other stuff like cryptocurrency. You can invest in a private business, tax liens, tax deeds, and so forth. So you've got a lot of options there. And then the next slide, please. You'll see that basically self-directed IRA is a tax-deferred trust account that is held by the IRS-approved custodian, and it gives you an option to invest in alternative assets. Let's move on to the next slide. And I believe there is going to be an illustration. So go ahead, go to the end of the this illustration here. So basically, step 1 is opening a custodial account. Step 2 is qualified transfer, where you direct your custodian, where you currently have your money, whether it's an IRA or 401k, to move money to the new account. And then from that account, you now have the ability to invest or to direct your custodian to invest in alternative assets. You can buy a piece of real estate, you can do paper investments such as trust deeds. And the disadvantage is that when you have a custodian, they're in business to make money, and so they do charge you a fee for each transaction, and that's a disadvantage. And that's where people come to us looking for a second option, which is a checkbook IRA. Now, with the checkbook IRA, you have a special purpose LLC that is established, and this LLC is owned by the IRA and it is managed by you. It does require IRS compliant setup and IRS compliant operating agreement, and this structure allows you to bypass the custodian when you make the investment. So you don't have to go through a middleman any longer. You don't have to have delays. You don't have to pay the fees. You can make investments directly and as simple as writing a check. Now let's look at how it works in action. It's similar, the beginning is similar to the custodial IRA. You do need to open an IRA with IRS approved custodian, then you have to move the funds out, and then that's where the difference comes in. We create a special purpose single member LLC. This LLC is owned by your IRA, and it is managed by you. As you can see, there's a little person, that's you. You're in control of this LLC. You don't own it, but you're manager of this.
Yeah, and folks, this is what Dmitriy set up for me back in 2012. Right, and an LLC is simply a limited liability company. Dmitry, apologize for the interjection, but we had some
that's good. This is good. This is an interactive presentation, so that's great.
Yeah, absolutely. So limited liability company, and you're basically circumventing the custodian here to avoid some of those fees. But Dmitry, please continue.
Yeah, so unfortunately, you can't get rid of the custodian completely with an IRA. A custodian is required by the IRS whenever you have an IRA. So you have to have a custodian, but you're able to bypass them and, as Patrick said, circumvent them when you make the investment, because you have this special purpose limited liability company in place that you control, and LLC now makes the investments. LLC will have a bank account in the name of the LLC. You will be authorized signer on the bank account. So all of the income and expenses will be going in and out of the bank account without custodian's involvement. So you don't have to pay all those fees that normally custodian will charge. And now let's move on to the next option, which is a solo 401k. So what is it? A solo 401k, also known as the ultimate retirement plan. Now, why is that? And once you see the benefits, you will agree with me, because a solo 401k is not a new plan. It's defined under Internal Revenue Section 401, subsection K. That's where the name comes from. And it's defined as a retirement savings trust. Now, solo 401k specifically designed for those people who are either self-employed or own a small business without full-time employees other than the business owner and the spouse. And the full-time definition is 1,000 hours a year. So if you own a small business and you have somebody working you part-time under 1,000 hours, you can still do this. You're still eligible. But if you do have employees working for you over 1,000 hours, unfortunately, you will not qualify. You will not meet the criteria of this plan. So they've been around for quite some time, but increased interest to these types of plan was as a result of some tax law changes in 2002 that made all the benefits available to the public. And let's take a look at those. So but before we do that, let's talk about the eligibility. So number one, you have to have a presence of self-employment activity, which can be in any form, shape, or type. And I'm just giving some of the examples here. You can pretty much do anything to generate earned income other than your employment working for somebody else. And number two is the absence of full-time employees. And so if you do have full-time employees or business with full-time employees, that's the only thing that will basically prevent you from using this. And let me just, I guess, sideway a little bit here. Even if you don't have a business, you can always start one up. And I do remember probably 20 plus years ago attending this seminar that was called, I don't actually remember what it was called, but there were two presenters, two authors who wrote book called ABCs of Making Money. And I remember just one thing that stuck with me from that presentation was multiple sources of income. They were talking about creating multiple sources of income. So if you do have a job, it does not belong to you. You don't own it. You have it today, you may not have it tomorrow. So it's always good to create additional source of income, and having that self-employment or starting that side business might be that thing for you to just help you get ahead financially. If you can go to the next slide, please. So how does the solo 401k works? Basically, first and foremost, you gotta have the sponsor of the plan. And that can be you just as a sole proprietor, self-employed individual, or if you have a corporation, LLC, or a partnership, all of that will work. This plan sponsor will adopt the 401k plan. So the plan and trust is created. And the plan comes with a solo 401k trust, which is in place to hold the plan assets, and you become the trustee of the plan. So as a plan trustee, you actually able to open a business checking account. One more click, please. And then you're going to be able to buy investments inside of the trust. And so the trust can hold physical real estate. It can become a bank and actually do a loan, private loan. Patrick will talk about that. And all of the income and expenses going back and forth from the trust bank account that you control. So with this vehicle, you're actually eliminating custodian altogether. There is no custodian, so there is no middleman at all. That's why it's known as the ultimate retirement plan, because it's very cost effective and actually gives you a lot of flexibility and control. Next slide, please. So let's take a look at some of the benefits. One of the things that it is known for is its high contribution limit. I mean, in this year, in 2019, you can contribute up to $62,000 per year. So if you own a business, and what if your spouse is also involved in your business? Together, you can potentially put over $120,000. You can shelter over $120,000 from of your income from taxes. That can be huge. That's gonna probably take you to the lower tax bracket, and you're gonna end up paying significantly less. So that's huge. So it's a great tax shelter. Another, it has a loan feature, basically allowing you to take a personal loan from your 401k up to $50,000 or 50% of the balance, whichever is less, for any reason. I'm not advocating you should take a loan from your 401k. It's really there as a kind of a backup, as an emergency. You should leave your money in the 401k and have your money work for you, but this feature is there. It's like you creating your own bank, and no one is going to turn you down because you're the one applying for a loan and you're the one approving the loan because you are the plan administrator. Next, there is ability to make Roth contributions. Now, you're probably familiar with Roth IRA. You can contribute up to $7,000. But with the solo 401k, you can contribute over $24,000 per year. And that is not subject to income limitation, unlike Roth IRA. So if you're a high income earner and you make over certain threshold, you are not able to make those contributions, but you can with the solo 401k. And then you have the checkbook control. So there is no custodian. You act as a trustee. You control it, and your spouse can participate as well. And last but not least, it is exempt from unrelated debt finance income tax, which is a subset of UBIT. Patrick will talk more about this a little bit later, but if you buy real estate inside of an IRA and you use leverage, the leveraged portion of income or income that comes from a leveraged portion of the property will be subject to this tax, which is not a deal breaker, but it is an extra tax that your IRA will be responsible for, and solo 401k is exempt from that. So that makes it even more superior.
And Dmitry, we got another quick question coming in. It's revolving around whether money sitting in your custodial account with the self-directed custodian, does that earn interest? And I'm not 100% sure about that question, but if it does earn interest, and Dmitry, you can comment on this, it's got to be very little, as if it was sitting like in a money market account.
So you're talking about the first option, just a self-directed custodial IRA, correct?
Yes, exactly.
I don't believe it earns any income. Maybe, I mean, like you said, if it does, it's nothing. I mean, if you're talking about $50,000, $100,000 and you're earning 0.5% on that, it's just a change. I mean, it's nothing. So you're setting this vehicle up not for it to just, you know, collect 0.5%. You want to invest the money. You want to earn real return on this money. Patrick will talk about this, but so I will not rely on that.
Yeah, I mean, that's absolutely correct, right? So the goal is to keep as little money in the custodial account as possible at all times, with the lion's share of it invested in assets that are going to be earning you a nice return. Right, so I do the same thing with my checkbook IRA, right? I keep very little in the custodial account and actually very little in the LLC bank account. Most of it's invested as much as possible. Same thing for the solo 1K. My wife has a solo 401k, and her trust account with Solera Bank has very little in it at all times. We try to keep it invested as much as possible. So,
yeah,
Dmitry, thank you.
You know, you will have period of time where you're going to have some cash. I mean, I do have some cash in my accounts right now, but you know, I'm not concerned about that. I'm not crazy about reinvesting every possible dollar. I just want to invest, you know, when I have enough money for next investment opportunity, I do invest. But yeah, there'll be a period of time where your money is just sitting there. But yeah, you do want to find next opportunity as soon as possible. So the bottom line, self-directed retirement accounts do offer you a true diversification. This cartoon created to my daughter, and you see a man holding a basket, and the bottom fell off and all the eggs are broken. And the wife says, well, I thought our investments were diversified. Well, not so. If all of your eggs in one basket, you do want to divide them. Wise man said many years ago, divide your portion to 7 or even to 8, for you do not know what misfortune may occur on the earth. So if you're just in the stock market, or you just in mutual funds, or you just in one investment class, you do want to diversify. And self-directed IRA and 401k offers those options. You can invest in precious metals, physical real estate, private business. You can do multifamily syndications. You can do hard money or private money lending. You can invest tax liens, tax deeds, and so much more. Now, what are the things that you cannot do? And basically, IRS does not have a list of what you can do. Rather, it has a list of the things that you cannot do inside of your retirement account. And that is referring to the Internal Revenue Code section 4975, which explains prohibited transactions. And basically, with your IRA, you cannot invest in collectibles, you cannot invest in the S corporation, and you cannot invest in a life insurance. And then in addition to that, I believe the next slide covers this. No, I think it's a little bit further. So it's a disqualified person. We'll come back to this. So your IRA or 401k cannot engage in any transaction with disqualified person. But when you buy real estate inside of a retirement account, because many people, this is very new concept to them and they just don't understand how it is possible. But you can do that. Real estate income and gains generated are deferred from taxes because IRA and 401k tax deferred vehicles. You will pay taxes at a future date rather than every year. So by doing so, you're actually taking advantage of the compounding interest. You earn interest on interest, and you deferring the taxes for till the future date. All the gains generated by the Roth 401k or Roth IRA will be tax-free. So you pay taxes upfront, you pay taxes on the seed, and the harvest is tax-free. And all of the income and all of the profits and all of the gains from those investments, they must go back into the accounts. You cannot benefit from those personally. They're for your future benefits, not for you to benefit today. And all of the expenses must be paid from the account, all the related expenses. So if you buy a property tax bill must be paid from an account. So a question, can you finance real estate inside of an IRA or 401k? Yes, you certainly can, but the loan must be non-recourse because you cannot provide the personal guarantee. So conventional financing will not work. Property can serve as the only security for the loan. So typically you need between 30 to 50% down payment, and basically there is only select lenders that do those loans. Property must have enough cash flow to pay the mortgage and all the expenses. That's lender's requirement. You must have enough cash reserves in case there is a vacancy, and it will trigger unrelated debt finance income tax inside of an IRA. 401k will be exempt from this. And just my last slide, I believe, just a side-by-side comparison of the three options. As you can see, all of them will allow you to invest in non-traditional assets. You do need a custodian with an IRA, but 401k, you don't need a custodian at all. The checkbook feature is a feature that is associated with the checkbook IRA and a solo 401k. With the checkbook IRA, there is also LLC fees that you need to be aware of depending on the state. You can take a loan from 401k only. IRA does not offer a personal loan. IRA is subject to taxes on leveraged real estate. The maximum contribution for an IRA is $7,000 comparing to $62,000 with the solo 401k. Solo 401k also has a built-in ability to make Roth contributions, post-tax contributions. And solo 401k does require self-employment activity. So it is most advantageous and gives you the most flexibility, but it is not for everyone. I'm talking about solo 401k. So if you're eligible for it, it's definitely a choice that you do want to make. If not, then you gotta go checkbook IRA route or a custodial IRA, depending on your investment strategy.
All right, Dmitriy, well said. A lot of information there. I encourage everyone, we're certainly not anywhere close to finished here, but I encourage you to visit that link for Dmitriy and set up a consultation, right? He's a wealth of information. And I want to speak to the power of some of the things that Dmitriy mentioned right there, especially on the Roth side of things. So if you buy you set up a self-directed IRA, right? Checkbook IRA, or even a solo 401k. Right, and you buy the rental property, and let's say you buy it all cash, no leverage, right? The rental income from that is going to be tax-free in a Roth situation, tax-deferred in a traditional, right? But then think about the capital gains on the sale of the property. If you hold that property in there for 10 years and you bought it for 200 and then you end up selling it for, let's say, 350, that gain, if it's in a Roth, would be all tax-free. And the magnitude of that is just mind-blowing, right? So that's just an example of kind of what can be done. But one of the big things is because people like to use leverage inside the IRA, right? And it gets a little sticky. And I have done this with my checkbook IRA, and so I can speak from experience. So unrelated business income tax, which is related to unrelated debt financed income. Okay, so the way to describe this is simply that, you know, it's not only for IRAs, but it could be for nonprofit institutions. So whenever debt is used by a tax deferred or tax exempt entity like your self-directed IRA, tax is applied to the portion that of the gain that is debt financed. And what are some examples, right? The one we've been talking about is debt financed rental property inside of an IRA. Another good example would be, though, investing in a fund, like a private mortgage fund that ends up using debt financing. Let's use the example and put it in perspective with regard to rental property. So let's say I've got an IRA or a checkbook IRA, and I want to buy a rental property. It's a $100,000 rental property, but I don't have $100,000 plus closing costs plus reserves. So I'm going to buy this house for $100,000, and I'm going to go ahead and use some cash that's on hand, $40,000, let's say, and then I'm going to obtain a non-recourse loan for $60,000. Right, very common, right, and that falls into line with what Dmitriy mentioned about 30 to 40% down, right? That is going to be like the maximum. And really what I see from the select lenders around the country who will make non-recourse loans, really 60% loan to value is that number or lower. So you need a sizable down payment. All right, but it's not like you can go to JP or Wells or any conventional lender and get a non-recourse lender. They'll have no idea what you're talking about. So anyways, this situation here with a 40-60 split to buy that rental property, right, that's 60%, right? So the bottom line here is that 60% of the income generated from that rental property is unrelated debt financed income and thus subject to tax. When you do this, you will have to file a specific tax form called a 990T, which will be filed for the IRA, and that's an annual filing, much like if you're filing your regular 1040 as an individual. So be aware of that if using leverage inside of an IRA or a checkbook IRA. But remember, the ultimate retirement plan is that solo 401k, and for some reason, I don't know why, but UBIT and UDFI is not applicable to a solo 401k. So we're going to move along here. I talked about how non-recourse loans are not super readily available in the marketplace, at least like conventional loans are. So one of the things that we do here at Marshall Reddick is we make non-recourse loans. And we're going to be very, very standard at that 60% loan to value number. That would be our maximum, which means that the IRA, if they want to buy the property, will need to contribute a minimum of 40% down payment plus closing costs. And they'll also need to keep some reserves. We require 6 months of the monthly principal, interest, taxes, and insurance payment. This is what our borrow tab looks like on our website. Just so you know, right in there in between the invest and services tab, this is where you can go to apply for a loan or look at our rates and terms and costs and fees and all of that type of thing. Don't get distracted in the fact that we have conventional financing listed here. Marshall Reddick does not do any conventional financing, only private financing to non-owner occupants, meaning it must be investment property. Here's what our rate card looks like for our rental property loans. Now, keep in mind while you're looking at this that Marshall Reddick also makes short-term loans. And you see that at the bottom of the screen here. So we have programs available for those who want to get creative and maybe flip property inside of an IRA or doing some kind of transactional funding or wholesaling or something of that nature. So we do offer that type. But this on the screen here is our rental property rate sheet. And a lot of you who are not familiar with non-recourse loans might be saying, my goodness, those are really high interest rates. And that's the case, right? But you're going to find out in your search that interest rates and, as we talked about, down payments and loan to value is much different than conventional lending, right? And there's very few lenders in the marketplace that make non-recourse loans, and so it's just not readily available. I imagine those rates will continue to drop as more folks get into the non-recourse space, but I don't see the loan to value changing. If you have more questions specifically about this, I would be happy to speak to you and address any borrower-related non-recourse loan questions that you have. But we're not the only game in town. We like to make sure that everyone's aware. So on the screen here, a couple of the banks in the country who actually do play in the non-recourse space. And there's a more complete list on Dmitriy's website at sensefinancial.com/non-recourse lenders. Now, a lot of these banks, however, though, are very particular in what they will and will not finance. They're banks, right? So their rates are going to be a little bit less than Marshall Reddick's. I encourage you to look at them, but be advised that, again, they're very particular. They have certain property that they will not lend on. For example, North American Savings Bank will not lend on property built older than 1940. They're also not the best in customer service, and I find that it takes somewhere in the neighborhood of 45 days to get a loan funded with North American Savings Bank. So be advised, do your due diligence and shop your non-recourse loan as you would a conventional loan.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Pat. Next, I just wanted to talk about how can we help with your investing strategies, right? So once you've identified that you want to leverage your retirement account, where does Marshall Reddick step in? So my role and my primary focus is on properties. So when we have properties and we also have mortgages. We actually have a slide of properties, or I'm going to go through the next slide is going to show you what it would look like if you clicked on the property tab. So what you'll see is this is our website link after you click properties, and you'll see there are many tabs that you can click on. The first tab is markets. So what you can do as soon as you sign on to the website, all of these tabs will be clicked and you would be able to see all of the properties that are available. I am more than happy to go through any scenario to show you how to refine this search. But on our next slide, we have the Clarksville market that's clicked, and we're going to go and just take a sneak peek of what that looks like. So once you've clicked on a particular property, the way that you would do that is you would click on the address. It is really awesome once you take the time to review the work in detail that we've put into this. It is a dynamic financial calculator that allows you to review all the necessary criteria in order to make an informed decision on this property. The information includes schools, market history, which is provided by the National Association of Realtors, loan scenario templates that allow you to choose from conventional financing, cash, or private loans, which are the non-recourse loans that we have been speaking about tonight. And you can see those options right there at the bottom of your screen. The best part about this calculator is that all of the fields are editable. So in the event you want to change any of the default figures, all of the calculations would also change accordingly.
Awesome, Vince, thanks so much. I have a few questions before we move on past the rental property tab on our website, and Vince and how he is involved in terms of his real estate advisor position. If you're going to be speaking with him, you're going to be going the rental property route, right? You'll be speaking with me if you want to go the private lending route. But again, before we do that, a couple of questions. So I'm full-time employed. Can I still have a solo 401k? Right, and I'll have Dmitriy comment on that, but from my perspective, as long as you have evidence of self-employment income, then you can absolutely have a solo 401k. Dmitriy, is that correct?
Yes, full-time employment has pretty much zero effect on you being able to qualify. What qualifies you is not, it doesn't matter whether you're employed or not. It's, do you have this self-employment activity or a business? That's what determines your eligibility. So yeah, you can be employed full-time and you can have a side business or a side gig, or just an example, you can have a full-time job and you can drive Uber on the weekends. Then you can have a 401k, solo 401k.
Great, thank you. Also, yes, we're absolutely, the slides for this PowerPoint will be made available. We'll have our contact information for Dmitry, myself, and for Vince again towards the end of this. And if you'd like those slides, no problem, shoot Vince or I an email, and we would be glad to send those. Okay, as we move on to private lending with Marshall Reddick, and I have tons of clients utilizing a self-directed retirement account, whether that's an IRA, a checkbook IRA, or a solo 401k to invest on our private mortgage platform, our mortgage marketplace, as I like to call it, utilizing those. Okay, and you can invest not only with self-directed retirement account, but you can do it with a regular LLC or a family trust or as an individual. Okay, so a couple things to note, right? When we are offering loans to borrowers, those same loans will be funded by our lenders, right? This marketplace is a very fluid marketplace wherein we at Marshall Reddick play the role of the broker. We intake the loan application from the borrower, again, specifically investment property only. We never lend to owner occupants. Okay, we take the loan application in, we go through house underwriting. I have a team of underwriters, loan processors here in our Newport Beach office. We then see if the loan and the purchase fits within our guidelines. And if it does, we will take it to our mortgage marketplace, wherein our lender clients, those who prefer to lend and collect interest as their investment strategy, as opposed, of course, to buying and owning rental property, those lenders will be able to pick up those loans. And Marshall Reddick plays the broker to put the two parties together and handles everything from A to Z, whether that be the loan documentation, escrow, title insurance, homeowners insurance. Okay, and it's important that you know that, of course, we have both the short-term programs, 12 months or less, higher interest, borrowers being the flipper, or the long-term programs supporting the buy and hold investor. Those are going to be 3 to 30-year loans, as you saw on the rate card I showed earlier in the presentation. It's also important to know that it's only one lender on one loan. You own the mortgage. Your self-directed retirement account or your LLC or you as an individual will be listed on the loan documentation. That is your loan, not Marshall Reddick, and Marshall Reddick never touches your money. It always goes through escrow, whether that's on the front end funding or at the payoff close on the back end. Okay, title, escrow, and insurance always included. We're not crowdfunding, we're not syndicating. Similar to how Vince described the Invest tab, right? If you click on properties, you go to the property side of the business. If you click on mortgages, you go to the marketplace, which again, we're looking at that list view on the marketplace now, and you can see our loan statuses on the left-hand side of the screen, right? If you find something you'd like more details on, we have a listing for every mortgage on our marketplace. And you just have to click the full details there from the list view in order to get into what I call the detail view. And this is a screen clip of what the detail view would look like. It tells you all the specifics about the particular loan. It includes photos. It tells you beds, baths, square footage. It provides comps. If we have an appraisal, the appraisal would be there. How much is the investment? What's the yield? Who are the parties involved, right? Is that escrow? Is there a loan servicer? Who's the insurance agent insuring the borrower? So on and so forth. Lots of detail in the detail view on the mortgage marketplace.
Awesome. Thank you, Pat. So we're going to have one more poll question to get you guys involved here. Give us a minute while we roll that out. We're going to go ahead and open it up now, and it should be available. I am interested in the following, and we'll go ahead and give you guys a few minutes as we see those trickle in.
Yeah, so we definitely encourage crowd participation. Love to get feedback from you guys. It kind of helps us following the presentation with following up with you, because we certainly will be doing that, right? Both myself and Vince will be reaching out to you guys to discuss what it is that you're interested in. So we'll give you just maybe another 5 or 10 seconds to get your votes in. And again, thank you for the participation. All right, so we are going to go ahead and close the poll. Thank you. And we will share the results. So as you guys can see, quite a mix there, right, Vince?
50-50 almost.
Yeah. Glad to see there's not too many people in those non-real estate related investments, but no worries, right? So rental property as a big one, and of course the private lending. The mortgage fund, that is coming too, just giving you a little sneak peek about that. So again, we'll be following up with you folks that are interested in rental property. Vince will be doing that, and I'll be following up with those of you who are interested in the private lending. Thank you for the participation. So we're going to get to the end of the presentation here. We're certainly going to answer some more questions. We've earmarked some time for that. And we're also going over some frequently asked questions that Dmitriy gets asked consistently, that both Vince and I get asked consistently with regard to retirement accounts, but also with regard to Marshall Reddick. But before I do that, I want to show a little bit of case study. And this is just one strategy, and it's actually a strategy that I have implemented personally in my checkbook IRA. Okay, so just one strategy of many that are out there. So back in 2012, as I mentioned, Dmitriy helped me set up my checkbook IRA. And what I started with was a small 401k. Okay, and I had about, I don't know, 40 or 45,000 in it. And talking to Dmitriy, and we'd been friends for a long time, and he's like, hey, you should check this out. So I did, right? I wanted to learn something new. And so I opened up a custodial account with IRA Services Trust Company. That's my custodian. And I actually created a Roth account. So when I invested my 401k there, or rolled it in there, that was a taxable event, okay? And I chose to do that because I felt like it was better to pay the tax, just pony up and pay the tax on the 40 or 45,000, rolling it in now, and get that into a Roth and a tax-free situation, as opposed to going traditional and growing it tax deferred. So I had my account established at this point, and then Dmitriy helped me set up that special purpose LLC. So then I moved the money from the custodial account into the bank account I'd set up for my special purpose LLC. From that point in time, again, I had about 40 or 45,000, and I decided that what I was going to do is invest into a private loan, a long-term loan through Marshall Reddick, right? Because I practice what I preach. I truly believe that our programs are fantastic, and they're great, especially for retirement accounts. So I invested in a loan, and I started collecting the payments, the monthly payments from that long-term rental property loan back into the IRA bank account. All right. And then as the years were going by, 1 year, 2 year, I kept contributing to my custodial IRA. And when I would make that contribution, $5,500 a year or $6,000 a year now, I would then move it from the custodial account into the IRA LLC bank account, right? So I'm growing my account now. And what am I going to do with those monies, right? I'm collecting monthly payments from the loan I invested in, and I'm making contributions every year. What do I do with it? I don't have enough money for a rental property. I don't have enough money for another private loan at this time. So I came up with the idea that I was going to open a Vanguard account in the name of my IRA LLC. And so then I started moving the money that I was collecting every month from the loan I had done, along with the contributions I was making, into a Vanguard account, dollar cost averaging it, if you will, and putting it into a very safe mutual fund. I wasn't earning a ton there, but maybe 4, 5, 6%, depending on the market. But it was a good place, earning well more than I would in my checkbook account that was with Wells Fargo. So then I was accumulating all of those dollars there. And when I had enough money for the next investment, right, I pulled the money out of the Vanguard account back into the IRA LLC bank account, and I funded loan number 2. Now I've got 2 streams of income with 2 separate properties or 2 different loans that I had made secured against rental properties. So I have 2 streams of income, keeping myself diversified, right? And I keep continuing to put those monthly payments and my annual contributions back into Vanguard, keeping as little as possible in the IRA checkbook, okay? And then boom, I had enough for loan number 3, and then loan number 4. And so on. And so I've kind of built this domino effect in this little program here that you see, which again is a case study on my checkbook IRA that Dmitriy so graciously helped me set up back in the day. So many other strategies out there, and I listen to people all the time doing those, but I wanted to share this with you because I felt like it was very powerful and it can show you what you can do with a checkbook IRA. Or a solo 401k for that matter.
Okay, so thank you so much, Pat, for that. It helps really break down how this looks in a real life situation. What we wanted to do is cover some frequently asked questions. As Pat mentioned, these are a lot of questions that I get personally as well as Pat, and we're gonna dictate those answers based on who they're directed towards. So we'll go ahead with our first one. The first one says, can I roll over my current employer 401k into a self-directed IRA or solo 401k? So Dmitriy, do you think you can help us out with that one?
Sure. So if you have a 401k with your current employer, the answer will be most likely not, or at least maybe you can do a portion of your funds. You got to direct this question to your employer just to be certain what the answer is, but typically you cannot access your 401k with the current employer until you no longer employ there or reach a retirement age. What I've seen, if you've been there with employer for a period of years, then you might be able to access a portion of it, but not all of it. So it's probably not, but to be certain, you want to ask your employer this question.
Yeah, that was my understanding as well, is that you can't roll it over from a current employer 401k, only a past employer once you'd left with them. The only other way that I can think about is that you could borrow from your employer 401k and utilize those funds. But of course, when you are no longer working for that employer, you've got to repay that loan if you hadn't already done so.
Yeah, probably not the best strategy as far as taking a loan to invest, but yeah.
Great. So the next question, what are the costs to set up a checkbook IRA, and what about a solo 401k? And Dmitriy, I think this would be
sure. Sure. So the cost to set up a checkbook IRA is one-time fee of $2,000, and that covers the all of the legal and state and the filing fees for the LLC. Once it is set up, the cost to maintain it, this is a $2,000 is one-time fee that we charge. Once it is set up, we don't charge anything after that, but you do have your custodial fee of $150 per year. And then depending on the state, there might be a fee for the LLC. Now, as far as the solo 401k, the cost to set up is $1,000 and the annual fee is $200, which begins in year 2. And as an incentive to all of the attendees, if you decide to do either one of these, you will get $200 discount on the establishment fee.
That's awesome. I appreciate that, Dmitriy. You looking out for our clients, and I know it's a win-win, and our folks certainly appreciate you.
Yes, thank you, Dmitriy. I understand that there are certain prohibited transactions for self-directed retirement accounts, many of which revolve around disqualified persons. I know you mentioned that a little earlier in the presentation. We figured this would be a good opportunity for you to discuss who those disqualified persons are.
Sure. So basically, disqualified person is the the IRA account owner and their immediate family. So your spouse, your kids, grandkids, your parents and grandparents, and spouses of your kids and grandkids. And also investment advisors and fiduciaries, those who provide services to the plan. And any entity in which you own interest. So basically, again, if you remember this, it's you and a vertical line. So your parents, grandparents, kids and grandkids and their spouses. Horizontally is okay. So your siblings are okay. They're not considered disqualified. Your aunt, your cousin, and so forth. So, but a vertical line is not okay. So those are the people that your IRA or 401k cannot engage in any kind of transaction directly or indirectly, and those people cannot receive any benefits from retirement account.
So Dmitry, would make sense then if I was to say that using my checkbook IRA, I could not lend money to my father, and counteractive to that, my father could not lend money to my checkbook IRA.
That is correct. That will create a prohibited transaction because now disqualified person is involved directly in a transaction with your IRA.
Awesome, thank you. Okay, a few more questions here, and I've got several good ones coming in from the crowd. We're definitely going to get to a few more of your questions, but we want to be conscious of everyone's time. We're going to be wrapping this up in the next 5 minutes.
Awesome. So next question, which I get very often, is how does Marshall Reddick make money? So in summary, we make money in a very traditional format. So with our brokerage, through our brokerage service, we collect real estate commissions. In any real estate transaction, there is a real estate commissions. Those commissions are paid by the seller. So any buyers that are going through this process, there is no additional charge to use us for that transaction. Our commissions are paid through by the seller. For our property management division, we have a monthly management fee, which is 7%. And that is charged monthly, and that is the way we are generating income in that specific service, as well as a small leasing fee when we procure a tenant, and that's only for the tenants that we bring in. And finally, through our private lending department, the income is generated through borrowers paying origination fees. That is going to be very customary in any kind of borrower situation. And yes, that would be the way that we generate our income. Okay, next question. What geographic markets does Marshall Reddick have an office in? Another great question. So we actually have, although we operate in 16 different markets, we have our agents in brick and mortar offices in the following markets: San Antonio, Texas. We have market in Austin, Texas. We also have our agents in Clarksville, Tennessee. And then coming in 2020, we will be in the Cape Coral, Fort Myers area in Southwest Florida, we're really excited to have our new presence there, as well as we do a ton of business there.
Yeah, so just to summarize that, what Vince was commenting on is that Marshall Reddick actually has 5 offices now around the country. We do operate in about 15 or 16 markets, but those with not a Marshall Reddick office, which means a brick and mortar office with our own W-2 property managers and our own 1099 real estate agents and our own license in those states. We do have those 5, which again, we're here in Newport Beach, California. This is the home office. There's, of course, San Antonio, Austin, Clarksville, a little suburb of Nashville, and coming online in 2020 is going to be Cape Coral, Florida. All right, the last frequently asked question for the night is regarding lending. And I have several questions about this from the crowd. So if I lend money on the Marshall Reddick Mortgage Marketplace and I experience a loan default, does Marshall Reddick offer any help? And the answer to that is absolutely. But before we talk any more about that, I want to talk about our default rate, which is sub 2%. And that's a historic number based on thousands and thousands of loans that we have done, right? And the marketplace is very transparent. We don't take any loans down. So you can see those loans that are available. You can see those loans that are funded. You can see those loans that are in payoff requested. You can even see those loans that have defaulted. Okay, so that 2% number is all revolving around the short-term loans. I have had 0 defaults in the history of private lending with Marshall Reddick on our long-term program. And that's not hard to understand considering the fact that we're doing 60% loan to value. There's just too much borrower equity at risk to have a default, recession or not. Okay, so on the short term, however, those are higher loan to value loans that we're lending on distressed property to flippers who are flipping those properties. We do experience a default occasionally, but it's important that you understand on that short-term program that we're not just lending to folks that we don't know, right? You can't call Marshall Reddick and talk to Patrick Prunty and say, hey, I watch HGTV, I know how to flip property, can I get a hard money loan? It just doesn't work like that. Instead, we only lend to a select group of borrowers who borrow from us on an ongoing basis. I have probably someplace in the neighborhood of 12 teams, small partnership teams around the country, Memphis, Toledo, Ohio, Dallas, Texas, so on and so forth. And these folks are borrowing 2 or 3 or 5 loans from me per month. Okay, so yes, we absolutely know who our short-term borrowers are that are in the little higher risk loan programs. Now, to get back to the specific question, Marshall Reddick, myself, and my team and all of our resources are here to help at no charge in the event you have a default. And I can never answer any specific questions about what happens in a default because they're always different. And it's important that you know that just because you have a default as the lender doesn't mean you lose money. You may end up making money if you take the property back. But the bottom line is that you always have the property as collateral, and we only do first position lien lending, which means in the worst case scenario, you always have the property as the security. So in the worst case scenario, you end up owning the property, which you would do through the foreclosure process. Something we're very familiar with, although it doesn't happen often. We're happy to help you when that happens. We definitely stand behind our fiduciary responsibility. So appreciate this time everyone spent tonight.
Awesome, Pat. Thank you. We want to thank Dmitriy for being online tonight. We really appreciate it, and we'll make sure to be able to get you guys to him for your own consultations per your request. Thanks a lot, Dmitriy.
Thanks for the great evening. It was great to spend time with you guys, and I look forward to speaking with many of the attendees.
Thank you, Dmitriy. And I also want to give a big thank you to Pat for being on this webinar tonight and going over all of the information that he covered. And like we mentioned, he will also be reaching out to those accordingly.
Yeah, my pleasure being with all of you tonight. Just really value the relationships that I've been able to build over the years, and that includes y'all out there that are the clients. So thanks again.
Awesome, and thank you guys so much again. This is my contact information here. I can facilitate either way. If you'd like to talk to Dmitriy, myself, or Pat, you can reach out to any of us, but we really greatly appreciate you being on tonight, and thank you very much.
Have a good night.